Hello everyone, Sandra here, and welcome to my life and channel update for December 2023. It's coming towards the end of the year, and this has been a very busy month, momentous month. I don't know, a lot of stuff has been happening this month. I will address the first thing that you might notice, the lighting. I guess like January or something at the start of the year, basically. I got some Christmas lights or fairy lights is probably better because I'm going to keep them up year round, not just at Christmas. But I'd gotten some and hadn't figured out exactly what I wanted to do with them. I think my mom had seen some on sale and gotten some for me. But I like them, but I just didn't know what to do with them. And I finally this month figured out what to do with them, which is hang them up underneath here and figuring out how to hang them up underneath there. So that was a bit of a process of figuring out how to get some thread under there to hang them off of. But they're up now, and they bring me a lot of joy, so I'm quite grateful to have them. But that is a relatively minor thing for this month. So the big thing this month has been my sleep schedule. So for those who don't know, just a few times a year, typically, my sleep schedule will get off enough where I feel that I need to move it around. Now, to kind of explain what's going on here, what typically happens is something will cause me to have stayed up especially late, and then that happens a couple days in a row, which then sets my wake up point at a different time. There's a couple of different things that can happen. In extreme cases, maybe I have really gotten into some sort of show that I've watched entirely too much of because I can't, I want to keep going. So that'll happen sometimes, typically with an anime or something. That's why I don't actually watch a lot of anime, because I have a hard time stopping. Every now and then it could be like a book or something. I don't tend to read a whole lot of books. It's just not how I tend to spend my time. But every now and then I will really get into one, and that will also potentially be a culprit for that sort of thing happening. So other things that can occur is maybe I just slept really well. If I sleep really well, then I have a hard time falling, I want to stay up more like 18 or 19 hours, and that's not great for staying on a schedule. So there can be all sorts of random things that can happen. I just have a natural tendency to drift over time. So when that happens, I don't have a go to bed earlier mode. I can't just go to bed at the time I'm supposed to. There's a whole thing there about the socially constructed nature of when people's sleep schedules are supposed to be. That could be discussed, but that's not what I'm here to discuss. I need to be able to try to coordinate with other people and things going on in my life, and that has an impact on what my sleep schedule is, which I will discuss in more detail shortly. But it gets far enough off of a standard diurnal schedule that I want to move it around, and I can't just go to bed earlier and have that work because I won't fall asleep. It doesn't work that way for me. And so the only solution I have is staying up later and later until I've moved my sleep schedule around the clock, and then waking up, more when I want to be, and more accurately going to bed more when I want to be. Kind of both ends, really. So I've been doing that this month, which has worked out really well. Just because all of my usual activities have kind of slowed down or stopped for the holiday season, which has made it very easy for me to not have scheduling conflicts in the process of moving my sleep schedule around, which is something that can happen kind of often. So that can be fairly frustrating to have happen as a thing, but moving through it, getting my sleep schedule moved around, it's all fine. So one of the things that I've been noticing, though, because I've been able to go a little bit more slowly than I sometimes do with this, because I have more time, I don't have the activities I have to get my schedule into place for to be able to meet, is just how much I like waking up before dawn and being able to watch as the sky lightens. I'm in a spot where I have a lot of very large trees in the way, so I can't actually see the sunrise despite having an east facing window. Boy, that was harder to enunciate than I expected. So I can see out east, but I can't really see the sunrise because there's too many things in the way. But it's still really nice seeing the sky lighten up, and there's something that I like about those early morning hours. The days feel longer when I'm waking up earlier and going to bed earlier, and I don't know why that is, but I'm finding that I quite like that. However, most of the social activities that I do are in the evening, and that just doesn't work out well for me to wake up early, and because then I have to go to bed early. Like, I've been waking up lately around like 3 a.m. ish, give or take. It's a bit of a in progress sort of thing, and that means I'm going to bed like 8-9 p.m. And when I have activities that end at like 10 p.m. or even 11 p.m., that don't work so well. So, unfortunately, the dictates of other people's schedules. And then the thing is, I usually like to have some time to wind down after the activity. So that's probably a few hours, and there I'm going to bed at 2 a.m. again. So that's just kind of how things are. If things could be arranged differently, that would be great, but they can't because we have to work around other people's work schedules and things for a lot of those activities. So it's just how things are. And that kind of just got to deal with it. It's one of the realities of living in the society that we do, with its structures and all of that. So anyway, that's been a big thing for me this month. Otherwise, I've been doing a bit of writing. I got the big articles that I was working on done last month, which I'm grateful for. But I have one that I've been kind of slowly chipping away at, just sort of examining God, and a lot of it is taking a look at the Ten Commandments, but there's a lot of other things. Kind of basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to work on my understanding of God, not at the intellectual level. Like it's trying to move it down deeper than the intellectual level, because the problem that I run into is through cultural osmosis. Just to give you kind of a rough rundown of like the introduction of this article. Through cultural osmosis, I've kind of absorbed this idea that I call a dark god. This is a god that's based on like morality and judgment and having a very specific moral code. It's kind of the stereotypical sort of Old Testament thing. There's a lot that I could go into where this comes from, but a lot of it is cultural osmosis, as I was saying, from growing up as a kid and things like that. Just the way people talk about stuff influences our ideas and our idea spaces. And words have a lot of power, and the language that we use around stuff has a lot of power, and the way we talk about things frames stuff for us. And so what I'm trying to do is work through a lot of that framing, because it's things like the dark god is the no fun allowed god, right? Which is kind of preposterous. I think it's very thoroughly established, both logically, but in the Bible as well, which is what we use as our reference document, that God was the one who invented pleasure. And if God invented pleasure, then it's not a bad thing. So there's a lot of things where culture talks about pleasurable things as if it's inherently sinful. And it's just another form of the spiritual physical dualism that sees physical things as bad and spiritual things as good. Spiritual mental, intellectual. There's a lot of different things that you can kind of put in that spot. Psyche, if you're going a little bit more Greek. but so like spirit, intellect, that sort of thing. But you get this division that people have, and it feeds into ideas of asceticism, and asceticism in and of itself is not particularly useful. As a consequence of helping others, there's some benefit, but it's not because you're practicing asceticism. It's because you're loving others. That's where the benefit is. So the more that I'm kind of growing and developing in my faith, the more clear it's like the core orienting principle is love. Like that is the core that things are oriented around. And love for one's fellow human being is caring about their well-being and that sort of thing. It really is kind of that. You can't. That has to be done through careful discernment and things like that. So people make moral codes, and then those become too rigid. Right? Is the problem? One of my articles, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, talked about some of this stuff some. So you can look up stuff from last month, or go to my blog and you can probably find it. But last month's article would have linked to this one. Or last month's Life and Channel Update video would have linked the article that I'm talking about. So the orienting principle is love, and there's a lot of things that we try to do for like morality. So anyway, a lot of our moral discussion, like people talk about, oh, it's sinfully delicious. You see that with food advertisements, indulgent, and all these sorts of things, and or like talking about sexuality, where things are like naughty and dirty and nasty or whatever, and so it's taking these things and imposing some malarkey on it. And there's other issues too, like what does worship mean, right, which I'm digging into as I'm working on this. So I've been slowly kind of picking away at this and trying to get a better grasp on things in a broader, fuller sense, to try to move things that I intellectually know down into a deeper, like base reaction level, as it were, where I don't have to think about it, right? It's like this is it's displacing the suspicions of the dark god, the no fun allowed god, the pleasure is bad god, that I acquired through cultural osmosis, that is not a real deity, or certainly not something to follow or worship. But it's a process of displacing that and working through things for that. So I've been picking away at that article some, as ideas kind of bubble to the surface and whatnot. But that's not a super high priority. It's kind of a mid priority. The other thing that I've been doing is been working on my game to an extent. And I've been figuring out paths for getting stuff done on it. And part of what's tricky is figuring out dependencies. So what I mean by that is I want to work on X, but X requires Y. So I have to do Y first before I can do X. So there's some stuff that has partial dependencies. So it needs X, Y, and Z. So each X, Y, and Z are each part of the dependencies that lead up to that. So I can do some elements of it if I have just some of those done. And I feel like I'm getting confusing at this point. But basically, like as I've been doing various other things, I have like, oh, this is something that makes me excited about my system. So there's a lot where I'm really excited about the systems that I have, that I'm developing for it, which is really good. But I also need to be putting in time to actually implement those things and not just get excited about them. And some of that feels like, okay, what are the things that I need to get done to be able to get to the point where I'm doing the parts that I'm excited about and whatever. So I've been working through some of that, doing a lot of planning in a program called Zim, which is kind of like an offline wiki. It's really useful. I like that for kind of putting things together and planning things out. It's less cumbersome than like trying to do some sort of Word document or something as well. Or like a Google Doc. I've done a lot of stuff with Google Docs, but then you get these large documents and you're trying to click through the outline, and it can get slow and laggy, so not great. But I've been doing some stuff on that. Not as much as I would theoretically like, but that's me problems that I'm working out. One thing that I found extremely useful, and I talked about this last time, but just the applications for it keep broadening, is writing down the thing that I want to make before trying to make the individual parts. And it sounds obvious, but for some reason, like, so here's actually what the problem was. Now that I'm thinking about it and talking about this, the problem was when I think of design document, I think of something that is meticulously listing out every single step of everything that you're doing. This is kind of what was taught to me at college. I went to DigiPen, for those who did not know. But the idea of like a design and technical document that are like, here is the design in immaculate detail, so the designer can hand it to somebody else and they can just implement it, and they don't have to like think, basically, I guess. I don't know. That doesn't work for me because it's too much of a level of detail. So I think the idea of something that is at a higher level, that's less detail, my programmer brain is saying writing the design document in C instead of assembly, or C++ instead of assembly, maybe even C# instead of assembly. I don't know. If that's lost on you, that's fine. Assembly is just a very low-level language where you have to write out every single individual instruction, basically, and it is as close to machine code as humans write, because writing machine code is not reasonable to do. So there's higher-level programming languages. They get compiled down to like assembly or to machine code. Anyway, I'm losing people. So writing something at a higher level, I think, is an idea that just hadn't occurred to me, because the idea that was in my head was something that was too fine-grained and too meticulous, and that doesn't work for me, like I said. So this sort of summary, like writing a summary of what I want to make, helps me make the thing sort of level has been quite useful. But I've been somewhat distracted lately because I've decided to replay Dragon Quest Builders 2. Which 1 and 2 are on the Switch, which is where I've played them. But it's a game that I really quite enjoy. I would describe Dragon Quest Builders 2, and there's some really important observations that I want to get to in a moment, but I would describe the game as sort of a blend of Minecraft, The Sims, and like an anime, like narratively, thrown into a blender. So that's kind of the mix of things that you've got. So you have the like Minecraft building stuff sort of concept, but one of the key things that you're building is things for NPC allies to interact with. So like a bedroom, and they'll go to sleep in the bedroom, and like a kitchen, and they'll make food, and farms, and they'll farm. And so you're making these different facilities for the NPCs to use. This was true in the first game as well, but I have not played that one in a while, and can't talk about it too much right now. So Dragon Quest Builders 2 has like that Minecraft building stuff, but I really, really like the Sims level of it, where you have these NPC allies that then use those things that you build. So it gives a sense of intentionality to building, which is really appealing to me. And then the whole thing is strung along with like these NPC allies and stuff, and your character are part of this overarching story that has sort of anime vibes to me, in that like there's these different arcs. So you have these islands that you go to like learn different recipes and get different resources and find people to help build up this central island. It's called the Isle of Awakening, and I am speaking poorly. But the idea is that you go and you find people to build that up. But you get these kind of long narrative arcs as you are working on these individual large islands with the NPCs that you're going to eventually bring back to your main area, and interacting with these like going through and basically repairing these things. Because the whole idea is like you're building stuff, right? You're a builder. It's I'm not going to get into the narrative too much, but it's very strong narrative arcs that remind me a lot of anime arcs, which I'm quite enjoying, actually. It's something that strikes me as what's neat about it is it gives you a long, meaty story, but then that story kind of like has a conclusion, but the individual things kind of continue, which I'm really enjoying with like the knowledge built up and everything. It really does remind me a lot of like arcs in an anime that kind of build on each other, and you get new characters added in, and they kind of persist through. And anyway, I'm enjoying it a lot, and I'm liking that narrative structure. But one of the things that really struck me that's very interesting is the process of building these levels, or these structures and everything. Doing the building in this game is not that dissimilar from doing level design. So I'm like, why am I enjoying this form of level design that's kind of gamified, but why am I enjoying this form of level design significantly more than I enjoy hopping into RPG Maker MV and doing level design? And that's a really interesting question, isn't it? Like, they are, on the surface, the same sort of activity, so why do I like one more than the other? And you can argue that, well, one's work. Sure, that's true, but like, that's not capturing the whole story, right? And certainly the gamified elements really help. But there's another really important thing here, and what I was reflecting on, because there's like both RPG Maker MV and like Minecraft or Dragon Quest Builders 2 work on what is fundamentally tiles. One's 3D tiles and the other's 2D tiles, but that 3D tile thing is a really, really big deal, because the 3D tiles mean that I can do my vision for a space the justice that I want to give it. Like, the being able to go around structures, having stairs that go in more than, even if it's just 4 different directions, not diagonals or whatever, like, you can only have up-down stairs. Like, they don't, you can't go down those ways, right? Like RPG Maker MV's presentation, that sort of 2D presentation, isometric, I guess. It's weird because it's like orthographic, I think. It's not projected, it's orthographic, it's the other one. Anyway, that perspective is very, very limiting. And figuring out what you can do in it, how to execute on ideas in it, is extremely difficult because it is inherently very limiting. Just due to the nature of how it works. So I've been thinking about that. The other thing is you got better lighting systems going on and stuff too. Lighting is something that I really care about. RPG Maker MV does a lot of things very well, and then other things very poorly. And lighting is one of the things it does poorly. It does do it, but it does it poorly. And I appreciate some of the things it does with being able to just do the simple tints. Anyway, I'm looking forward to working on something that lets me work in 3D at some point in time in the future, but I do want to finish something in RPG Maker MV first. Anyway, I'm probably overthinking all sorts of things. But I just found that really interesting, where it's like, oh, these are very similar activities on the surface, but why is one way more enjoyable than the other? I've also been playing some Guild Wars 2, doing Winter's Day stuff. For those who are curious, in my story-focused playthrough, I'm in Living World Season 4 now, which is neat. I've been doing a lot of Winter's Day. I unlocked Virtuoso on my Mesmer, and I'm really liking Virtuoso quite a lot. The clones have a problem that they're very clunky to work with because they disappear when the enemy that they were targeting dies, and that's it makes your shatters really hard to use. Anyway, I'm not going to get into design stuff on that right now. If you're interested, let me know. And I can try to discuss some of it. I certainly have not examined the game anywhere near in depth as I have Guild Wars 1. Speaking of which, I have streamed a couple more times this month. The sleep schedule stuff has made it really difficult to know when or whatever with the streams. On that note, when is a really big question for me. I'm not sure what the best sort of time for streaming is. Now, I'm not going to restrict myself to this is the best time for viewers, but I would like to prioritize what time of day is best for viewers. So I'm in the Pacific time zone. I'm happy to take what time plus GM, like what is your GMT time zone? So I'm like GMT -7 right now, I think. Or no, -8 right now, because I think Pacific Standard Time. So your time zone in GMT and like what time works best for you for Guild Wars 1 streams would give me some information to work with, you can either write in the comments or pop in the Discord and say there. But that would just give me something to kind of work with to get a rough sense of like if I feel like streaming, what time of day is best to do it in, so people can actually watch. Because part of the fun of streaming is being able to interact with people. Streaming is all right when you're just playing a game, but if you're not interacting with people, it's kind of like degrading to the gaming experience because you're still trying to perform. But when you have people to interact with, then you get the social interaction, so that makes it that bumps it up superior. So I'd appreciate being able to know when people can actually hang out. So that's kind of those random thoughts. And I know I have a lot of European viewers, so it's just like what time of day is kind of going to work well for them. I feel like it's probably if I'm streaming around like 10 noon as kind of a start time. So that'd be like GMT, at GMT plus 0. So just at GMT, that would be, like 8 to 10. No. 6 to 8 p.m. is kind of a starting time, which might work better. I don't know. Anyway, I've been having fun continuing the Unlock All Skills series. And people seem to be liking it decently well, which is always good. It's always encouraging when people enjoy it. So I'm not sure if there's a whole lot else to add. Haven't done a whole lot of Magic events. You'll see a lot of cards over there on the table. Those are cards that I need to sort and put away from previous Magic events. I did go, my local game store did a Mystery Booster Convention Edition draft earlier in the month, and that was a lot of fun. For some reason, I tend to do well at some of those more like strange formats like that. Did I go? I feel like I remember going 3-0 in that. What was my deck? My deck was some sort of... Yeah, that's right. I was running Sultai Charm. And I kept being like, oh, I wish I was in white and red because there's so many sweet white and red cards going around, but I'm not. It felt like it did not feel like a strong deck. It felt like a very dirty deck, but it turns out Crystal Shard is a busted Magic card. And being able to bounce... why am I blanking on the name? The one for blue and a green from Dissension, the Snake Elf from Simic. Coiling Oracle. Got there. Being able to cast Coiling Oracle multiple times in a game is just disgusting, and you can do all sorts of fun shenanigans. So I had a lot of fun with with that shenanigan heavy deck. I also remember doing really well with the shenanigan heavy deck in the one Dominaria remaster draft I got to do. Where Oversouled Cemetery and Triskelion was put in some work. But anyway, that's enough of those random thoughts. Do I have any other random thoughts? I don't know. Feels like it's been a pretty good month. Just for me, emotionally and stuff. These lights really have helped a lot. So I think that's going to be all. This is about half an hour at this point, so I should go ahead and wrap up here. I thank you all very much for watching. Reminder, let me know what sort of time for watching streams works well for you. No guarantees that I'm going to stream then, but, information that I can use for deciding when I do stream. Until next time, I want to wish everybody a happy new year, because it's just about the new year. And take care, everyone. Goodbye.